TPC Canadian Open just wrapped up last week at the TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley, and it's always a big event in this country because it shouldn't surprise anyone. Golf is a popular sport in Canada. There are over 2,300 golf courses across this country, and they attract millions in tourism dollars, which makes this summer an interesting one in terms of how much of those tourism dollars will be coming up from the U.S. versus folks staying here in the country. So today I'm joined by Jeff Calderwood, who's fresh off attending this year's tournament. He's the CEO at National Golf Course Owners Association Canada. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about golf as we head into our peak season.
Yes, for sure. And you mentioned peak season. And of course, you know, our audience who are small business owners and entrepreneurs, a lot of business gets done on the golf course.
Yeah, we like the expression. It's sort of a slogan unofficially, more business done on the golf course than in the boardroom. So sometimes we throw that around when we're talking business to business.
Now, let's talk about the NGCOA. What is it that you guys do?
Well, I guess the elevator speech on that would be we're the trade association for the business side of the golf industry in Canada. So it's very much like a niche market chamber of commerce, optional membership for any of those golf courses across the country. We're just approaching, we're about to hit 1,500 golf courses paying membership dues and several hundred others that are not golf courses that are part of the membership community, typically suppliers, related stakeholders such as that. And what do we do for them? Very much on the business focus, half a dozen sort of categories of services, marketing programs to get more golf played, benefiting the revenue side of all those small businesses. We have a very large group purchasing program that then supports the expense side of those businesses, national account pricing, things like that. We have quite a developed research department that's crunching out reports and benchmark surveys and things like that for management tools on their decision making of the golf courses operations. We have a lot of educational services, consultants, writers, guest speakers, magazines, newsletters, e-newsletters, that sort of thing.
Right.
Some peer-to-peer best practice exchanges. We do a lot of advocacy. Majority of that is government, but not necessarily always, just whatever is in the best interest of advocating on behalf of the business community of the golf industry. And we do a lot of events, dozens of them a year, small, regional, all the way up to national conferences for the networking and supporting, delivering on all those other things I'll just mention. A lot of them are part of the conference or that kind of event. So probably a bigger industry than you would think. It's not just a great game, which it certainly is.
Right.
But it's also a highly developed industry, and we lead on a number of economic impact benchmarks, all other sports. For examples, over $23.2 billion GDP.
Wow.
More than any other participation sport. Our employment numbers, 237,000 average employment years. Again, number one. And one that I like to cherry pick out of that economic impact study is the charitable support, because we raise more for charity than any other participation sport in Canada at 382 million average. So that's who we are and what we do.
Right. That's not surprising. I mean, how many times have you've been asked to buy a ticket to this charity golf tournament or that charity golf tournament? For sure, I've been to a few of those myself.
Yeah, it's popular.
Yeah. Now, last week was the Canadian Open. I feel like that's kind of like the kickoff to the season, and unofficially, but it must be a busy time for you.
Yeah, and the Canadian Open is a good symbolic kickoff to the peak season.
Right.
In Canada's weather patterns vary across the country when you call it the start of the season. But the peak season is right about then. We're all excited because the golf industry and golfers themselves is the key part of driving that. Our demand has never been higher. Golfer enthusiasm, including latent demand, people who watch it. So they may have been at the Canadian Open or watching the US Open this week. They maybe haven't yet taken up the game, and that connects to some of our marketing efforts to trigger on those high points and continue our success.
You mentioned a little bit there, but golf courses kind of saw a big success during the pandemic because people were looking for things they could do outdoors, socially distant and stuff. Golf was obviously one of the big activities, and it feels like you guys reaped the benefits to that. And then coming out of the pandemic, since then, though, how's it been?
Yeah, that's a great question, because during the height of all that, when for quite a while, golf was like the only game in town. It was the only thing that was open. Everybody was locked in, looking at four walls. We used to joke with our beer partners that the only place golfers could go, or anybody could go to have a beer with friends, was out on the golf course for that period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had an all-time high then. And a lot of people said at the time, a lot of experts said at the time, when everything else opens and business gets back to normal and all of the competition, everything else that comes with life, you're going to go right back to where you were. So we haven't. We're still up around 28% from the pre-COVID numbers of rounds played,
Right.
which we track monthly and regionally. So we've given back a little bit. We were in around 33% up at the height of COVID. We're still holding on to 28% despite everything else is open again. And then revenues are up beyond that because we're in the yield management business. So it's not a fixed price based on, sort of fixed commodity type expense.
Right.
It's very much based on demand, and it can be anywhere from zero to high price. Our revenue numbers are outpacing those rounds played statistics that I just gave you. So we're in a good spot. Last year, we were up another 2% over the previous year. So we'd given back a little bit and then we recovered a little bit. So that's encouraging. And the projections for the 2025 season made by the golf courses themselves through some extensive surveying we do shows another increase this year. So it's pretty healthy. Yes, we've held on to the COVID uptick surprisingly well. And it's a good time to be in the business.
The golf season in Canada can be short depending on how the weather is. And I feel like this year, summer took a long time to kick off. I mean, even today, it's mid-June and we're at, what, 16 degrees Celsius. So it's still cooler, right? Although great golf weather, I think. The big story right now in the news, obviously, is the trade war and tariffs, and Canadians are refusing to go down to the U.S. So that makes this summer kind of an interesting story for tourism. Golf courses get a lot of visitors coming up from the U.S. What does it look like? What are your forecasts this year for foreign spend versus domestic spend in terms of your member association?
Well, I guess a bit of a silver lining kind of a statement that Trump's headspace and policies that he's been imposing on the world, including Canada, actually are having some benefits on the inbound tourism side,
right?
And on the outbound, Canadian golfer going south, that will benefit our industry in Canada this year. So yes, there is that expectation. Some of it is directly related to the tourism positioned golf courses, golf resorts,
right?
Areas of the country that really specialize as, resort regions for golf. I can give you one example because I was just looking at it. The Prince Edward Island golf community is very much built on tourism, right?
Right.
The number of courses they have for the local population wouldn't make sense. It was built to help drive and support tourism. So it's a good example. And what I was just looking at, and they get all the pre-booking that comes with a tourism thing. So their numbers show before some of the local domestic market numbers show. They are pacing at 37% in stay and play reservations ahead of last year, this year.
Wow.
I mean, 37% in 1 year is an enormous shift.
For sure.
And that's sort of combining the golf and the hotel. Golfers specifically, those bookings are up 20% at this point on the calendar. So there's an indicator that's, golf PEI. You would have similar for Whistler, you'd have similar Banff and Niagara Falls and Muskoka and Tremblant, go across the country. That shows you that Canadians are rearranging their travel and spending patterns coming from that same market.
Right.
I noted that Ontario was by far the largest uptick, which to me means, now this isn't scientific at this point, is quite likely related to the fact that Ontario is such a Myrtle Beach and Florida winter golf destination, and those unspent dollars from canceled trips this year and intentions going forward redirected at places such as PEI for those experiences. And I think that flows through to the domestic demand as well. Right. Dollars not spent out of the country, more spent in the country. And even if it's not tourism, just your local play, we're anticipating a nice boost for the same tariff related reasons.
I'd mentioned off the top, there are over 2,300 golf courses across the country. Many of them are your members, and a lot of them are in smaller communities. So how do these golf courses work within their local communities to attract these visitors coming in?
Well, it's a good question because golf is so accessible in Canada. It's in every one of those small communities that you're implying in your question. It's one of the beauties of the sport. Wherever you are in the country, there's golf courses near you. And by the way, we have more golf courses per capita, based on the population, than any other country in the world, with a few minor exceptions where they're built just for tourism.
Right.
Such as my example with Prince Edward Island. There's a few small countries that's the case. So yeah, it's very accessible. That'd be, I guess, comment number one. Typically, as you get to the smaller communities, the value is incredibly high because they typically aren't priced as high as the bigger city markets.
Right.
So the value proposition is a great talking point for the benefit of golfers either living in those communities or traveling to them. A lot of golfers head from the big city out to those communities just because the value proposition is so strong. So I think that's a key point. And I think you often get a little extra level of personalized service on that, sort of the country down home friendly kind of service, which isn't always as easy to fully hit where not as many people know each other in a bigger city. So I think that combined with, preservation of green space as those communities grow, golf has a lot of great environmental positioning advantages. And on the economic side, in some of the smaller communities, that golf course is the largest employer in town. So, I mean, it's driving a number of different angles why it's important to those small communities.
What are you most excited about for the 2025 golf season?
Well, I think part of it is golf courses are excited about being part of the solution to that whole tariff thing that we just discussed. There's a little enthusiasm, and from a business standpoint, they've got the opportunity to capitalize on delivering that solution. Everybody's a little stressed, just as they were in COVID. We were a big part of the solution for people's headspace and a healthy mindset and physical activity and socializing. I think there's some excitement from the golf course surrounding that for this year that's unique. From our perspective as an association connecting to those golf courses, we're about to launch our annual Take a Kid to the Course program, which kicks off July 7th with a week of high-profile stuff about kids golfing free. And we have somewhere between 500 and 600 participating golf courses across the country. So back to that accessibility question, there's a golf course near you that's participating. It's optional, and all those golf courses opted in. So that's exciting. And again, back to our association, our largest event of the year is our national annual conference called the Golf Business Canada Conference and Trade Show. And this year is the 25th anniversary of that event. It moves around the country. It's coming to Niagara Falls in November. So that's another highlight for this year. And all the content of that is just related to similar things we're discussing here about the business side of the industry and how it gets propelled forward and exchanges of best practices and a lot of good times on the social scene among peers as well.
And if our listeners wanted to learn more about all these events and programs you're running, where would they go?
The best central resource would be our website, NGCOA.ca. That's the acronym for National Golf Course Owners Association. And we have a few other programs that have their own dedicated sites if they cross over to the consumer side, such as for that Take a Kid to the Course program. That website is kidsgolffree.ca, and there's listings of all those courses, and you can click through to whatever promotions are being run by the individual course in your own backyard.
Perfect. I'll include those links in the show notes for this episode. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Alan. Hope to see you out on the golf course. We're going to get you out a little more often. It sounds like you don't play as often as you should, but let's work on that.
Perfect. Thank you.